Hi, I'm Stephanie at Steph Lives in Pages, and tonight I am here with Olivia Boothe, and we are going to do a quick little author interview, and I am so excited. So Olivia, would you like to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your most recently released book?
Hi, everyone. So my most recently released book is Afterworld, Road to Redemption. It's a co-authored book with Victoria Liv, post-apocalyptic paranormal romance, angels, demons, zombies, end of the world stuff. Um, so yeah.
I obviously looked it up in preparation of this, and I immediately downloaded it. I personally haven't seen anything like that come across my radar yet, and it sounds really good. So I queued it onto my Kindle immediately.
It was a
Um,
lot. It was a lot of fun to write, and people have been dubbing him like it's John Constantine meets I Am Legend meets Supernatural, and it really does have all those vibes like all rolled into one. And
Perfect.
when we first saw the cover for that book, because it was actually it was a, what I'm looking for. The cover was already pre-made.
Okay.
I wasn't searching for a cover, and I was just scrolling through. I was scrolling through the internet. I don't know what it was, and I saw it, and immediately I was like, "Oh my god, that's like I Am Legend, but with a female main character." And the
Yeah.
stories started to churn, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna buy it because I know at some point I'm gonna write the story.
And you did.
Yeah,
So, release date, it was just what, September
16th.
16th. Okay, so this month.
Yes, like 2 weeks. It's been out in the world.
And I noticed it is a series. So do you have an idea of how many books are
Um, so
anticipated?
so we originally did not anticipate to turn to a series, but as we got closer to the end, we realized there's still a lot more story to tell.
Okay.
So there's definitely book two with the possibility of book three
Okay.
and maybe some spin-off novels
Oh,
with
nice.
some side characters and stuff. Yeah.
Um, is this your first time co-writing?
It's not.
It's not.
Um, yeah, I've co-written a previous novel. It was a vampire paranormal romance with
Okay.
Pepper A. Brooks. And that was the first time I co-authored anything. I didn't really know how it was going to go. It's definitely a different type of experience. It's not for everybody. And you really need to be able to trust the person you're working with in order for it to
Absolutely.
go well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Um, and then last about Afterworld, and then we're going to move on to some different questions, but this is kind of fun. If this book would be made into a movie, do you have any idea of what actor you would cast as like the main character?
I God, I wish, right? I so I'll tell you who we've envisioned as we were writing these characters. And I'm not saying that this is who I would pick to play, but if you're familiar with Marvel Universe
Okay.
and the Guardians of the Galaxy, so
Okay.
Star-Lord and Gamora, that's kind of the dynamic that Jax and Kate have in the story, where
Okay.
she's kind of like a badass, very serious, and he's kind of like a sexy goofball.
I love
And
that.
um, so when writing the book, that's kind of like who we would envision as Kate and Jax. But I haven't really thought about, if it ever got made into a movie, but that would
Yeah.
be right?
That would be amazing. Okay, so moving on to some other questions more about you. When did you start writing?
All right. So I've always been a storyteller. I've always wanted to be a storyteller. But when I was growing up, I mostly was interested in making movies. And so I went to school for filmmaking. I did some screenplays. But then I realized that it wasn't really for me. So I kind of shelved that for a while.
Okay.
And so then I became a really hardcore reader. And I'd actually never read romance before I started writing romance. And
Interesting.
one of my friends encouraged me to read the Twilight series, and then after the Twilight series, she encouraged me to read 50 Shades, and so that was like my intro to romance.
From Twilight to 50 Shades.
Shades. It was like she was like it's 50 Shades, it's Twilight, but with all the stuff that was not in Twilight.
Yeah.
And so I realized, you know what, there's something here in this romance genre that's really appealing, and a story started to brew, and that desire to start writing again just sprouted in me. And so I started my first novel, which was Wicked Dance, a contemporary romance novel. And that's how the journey began. And at that time, I didn't really know anything about writing. I was writing for me. I was writing as a hobby. And as I let people read it, like your immediate family or your friends,
Yeah.
and they start telling you, oh, this is good. But you're like, yeah, but you're family. You're supposed to tell me that. So I joined this online community. At the time, it was called autonomy.com.
Okay.
And it's where aspiring writers went. And there's similar ones online now, but aspiring authors went on there and they critiqued each other. And the goal was for someday people would rate your book high enough that you would make it to what they call the editor's desk. And a HarperCollins editor would actually look at your work and potentially offer you a deal. And so it encouraged people to stay on there and keep critiquing. And through that critique platform, I made some friends, and at the end of the day, I decided to publish.
That's fantastic. I love that. So you kind of already answered the second question of, did you always want to be an author? You already discussed the progression of that. So we will move on to, how many books have you written at this point?
So I have 4 books now that are published, but I do have a 5th one that's on the sidelines. Okay. So one of my big passions is fantasy or fantasy romance. And so, I started off with a small press. So my first 2 books were published with the Wild Rose Press. Then I self-published the last 2 co-authored books. And so I wrote this fantasy with the purposes of querying it one day to an agent, and maybe try to, go for a deal. But at the moment, I don't think it's the right time for this fantasy novel. So it's just it's finished and it's sitting on the shelf until I feel like I'm going to try to query it, or I'm going to try to self-publish it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I love that, though. You're just hanging on to it until you feel like it's the right moment.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite of your books that you've written so far and published, or written, even your fantasy book?
I would say my favorite book, well, right now it's got to be Afterworld. It's so fresh in my system I'm really proud of that book. Not that I'm not proud of the other ones, but there's clearly a progression from my first book baby to now in terms of my growth as a writer. Yeah. And so I would say this is definitely showcases my best work as an author. But it's also a co-authored book. So if I had to choose just a solo project, I would say the fantasy book that's sitting on my shelf would probably be my favorite book.
Okay. Is there an author in your genre that you admire?
So I would say in another indie author that I admire that's in the romance genre would be E.J. Frost. Okay. So I discovered EJ because I had actually finished reading a sci-fi saga, and I was high on that book, and I had like a terrible hangover, and I was looking for something sci-fi, and I found her by chance, and it turns out she writes sci-fi romance, and I was like, and when I read her work, I didn't expect it to be so intense in the world building. Like, it was true sci-fi and true romance together. Usually you get one or the other. Yeah. And so I remember just like stalking her like all over social media and then gobbling up the rest of her stuff. Eventually we actually became friends. So we're really good friends now. And I've never met her in person, but I try to be cool and stuff online when we talk, but literally secretly I'm like still fangirling her. She's an amazing author, and it just feels like I can't believe there was a time where I was stalking you, and now we're like, I can message you whenever I want. So
I love that.
yes.
That's fantastic. Hey, and you already answered the sixth question too. It's about your first published book and what the journey was like. Did you want to elaborate on that anymore? You kind of.
I mean, I guess if there's any other writers out there that are also starting out on their journey, I think the first book that you publish is always going to be your hardest. And I do advise people to not rush the process, because for me, it's about the quality of the work that you're putting out there. And I know that I did a lot of research when I first started to write. You know, you think that you're this amazing writer and maybe you did great with grammar, and then you realize that like there's many different, it's not the same type of grammar or the same type of rules, or you're not as fresh as you think you are. So do your research into writing and also the publishing world. And it was 10 years from the time I started to write to from the time I wrote that first book till now.
Okay.
So it's been a long journey for me.
Yeah. That's some great advice, though, for anybody wanting to start out. You mentioned you do a lot of research for your writing. Where do you get your inspiration?
I mean, I guess it depends what I'm writing.
Yeah.
Could be music, could be movies, could be a photograph. Like I said, when I first saw the cover for Afterworld, like immediately those ideas started to churn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. It really depends on the story.
Yeah. So next question, you've written the contemporary, the fantasy. Writing can be emotionally draining. How do you get into the mood for writing those more emotional scenes, and how does that affect you?
So I walk in my author's skin, my character's skins for like a while. So if I know that I'm what we call a pantser, which means I don't do a lot of plotting. I kind of just sit at my computer and whatever comes. Okay. But there are times where you do think ahead of what you're going to write. And sometimes when I'm preparing for an emotional scene, I'll probably ruminate for like a week. I'll just walk around and like immerse myself in that character's skin until I feel them in me. I know this sounds crazy.
I love this.
And once I feel like that character is in me and I'm ready then to start to write, because I feel like then the emotion comes through. I'm all about the feels when I'm writing, and I like to draw emotion from the readers. It's one of the things that I would say I don't want readers who have spoken about my work. That is the one thing they'll mention the most, is the ability to draw them in and really draw those emotions from them. And that's what I attribute it to, really like wearing my character's skin.
Yeah. It's like method acting, but in writing.
Yeah, you can say that.
We are actually really getting through these questions really good and in a good time frame. This isn't your first time co-writing, but can you tell us something about the book that isn't in the blurb?
That isn't in the blurb.
Really putting you on the spot.
I mean, there's a lot that's in there. So this is, we consider it a dark paranormal romance, or dark apocalyptic romance, because there are a lot of dark themes. But I feel like a lot of people see or hear the word dark, and especially in dark romance, and I think they start envisioning a certain type of thing where it's like it mostly has to do with the spice in the book going down a certain way, right? So we picture maybe non-con, or dub-con. And so I don't know if people going into this book, that's what they're expecting. But the dark themes in this book are really more about the world. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of inner demons that both the characters are fighting. And there is, there's a mention of child death. There is a mention of rape against children. So these are dark themes, that are spoken about, that are dealt with in the book. So it's not necessarily dark in that sense where, oh my God, it's going to be so spicy, raunchy, and like things. It's nothing there is there for shock's value.
Yeah.
It's there because it makes sense for the world. It's the post-apocalyptic. The gates of hell have opened. You know, the four horsemen are out patrolling the streets, and these are not like, you know, cuddly monsters, right? A lot of people think of monster romance, and it's like, okay, it's these monsters that you fall in love with because there's some redeeming quality that they have. These are real monsters who are evil and are there to cause you pain and cause you, you know, despair. And so I think a lot of the people that have read it and have gone in are like, whoa, we were not expecting it to be dark, but dark in that other sense.
Yeah.
Now, there is spice in it and maybe some kinky spice, but it's nothing that anybody should be worried about in terms of triggers. The triggers all really have to do with the dark themes around the world.
Okay, yeah.
You do meet some really cool angels, iconic angels in there in the different light, I guess. Like there's a lot of biblical lore that we've kind of reimagined.
Okay. It sounds really complex and amazing.
Like, you don't have to be religious to appreciate the book. And if you are religious, it's not something that you're going to be like, oh my God, how can they say those things? You know what I mean? It's biblical lore. It hopefully doesn't come off as preachy.
I can definitely agree with you. I think dark romance, probably especially because of the book talk world, it has a certain, I don't want to say stigma, but it has a certain, when you hear dark romance, you think of a certain type of book.
Yeah.
Mostly because of, I think, book talk. So I can see what you're saying there. And I am just sitting here listening to you, ready to read this book.
It grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. I'm just letting you know.
This is my favorite. That is my favorite type of book.
Oh, and there is a 2-chapter prequel that's for free. Anybody wants to download it from my website. And so it's not a requirement to read it to be able to appreciate Afterworld, but it kind of gives you a bit of context for both characters and who they are. And it does enhance your reading experience. So if anybody's interested, you can download it for free off my website. And just in case anybody's wondering, it was originally part of an anthology that fell through. It was a post-apocalyptic anthology meant to introduce readers into the world, but that fell through, and we don't want to lose those 2 chapters. And I think people will appreciate those, so in case they're interested.
Yes, absolutely. I personally always love all of the content I can get, especially, I mean, your book sounds like it's complex, so I will definitely be looking into those 2 chapters before I get started. So the cover, I love that. So I did notice that there's a dog on the cover. Is that dog in the book?
So Hank, yes, Hank is a main character in the book. From beginning to end, he is a main character, and he's like a major floof. And I would say he's one of a lot of readers that says he was their favorite character.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I love that.
So like I've been trying to convince my husband to let me get a German Shepherd just because. So I got myself a mini German Shepherd, a mini Hank, a stuffed animal.
I love that. They are such a great breed, though.
They are. They're very smart. They're very loyal.
Yeah.
And so I never had a German Shepherd, so I had to do a lot of research in terms of their behavior and in terms of their behavior, so that Hank felt genuine to his breed. And there's been people that have read it who have German Shepherds, and they're like, oh my God, that's exactly how my dog is. They really do talk to you with their sounds and their movements. And so I've always wanted to have a dog main character, and Hank is it. God, I love him. You're gonna love it too.
I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
I hope your husband lets you get a German Shepherd.
I hope so too. I'm trying.
We already discussed that if the book was made into a movie. So
personally, I prefer if you were made into a Netflix show, but
I can see that. I mean, especially with the complexity, shows just have the ability to do all the little details, right?
Yep. You can flesh out the characters a lot more. You would lose so much. I don't know when was the last time that a book was made into a movie and it was like successful.
Yeah.
A lot of them flop because of that, because you can't tell everything that's on the page.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, probably some like standalone romance, probably. Like, you know, Nicholas Sparks, maybe.
Oh, well, I mean, but that's Nicholas.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with him.
Yeah. Let's learn a little bit more about you. So do you have your favorite author is the same one?
No, so okay, so oh my god. I have a list of my top 3, my top 4.
Okay.
So Carrie Maniscalco is my go-to for like I loved do you know who she is?
Nope, I'm writing it down.
So Carrie Maniscalco, she wrote the Hunting Jack the Ripper.
Okay, so yeah, that is on my TBR. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
So there's like 4 books in it, and that's like a whodunit. It's a mystery. Loved it, but I fell in love with the writing style. And then she did kind of like a romantic fantasy, which is the Kingdom of the Wicked, Kingdom of the Curse, and now Kingdom of the Fear, which is like released 2 days ago. So I love her for that. And then I don't want to say I love Sarah J. Maas. I love some of her work.
Yeah.
Some of her books. Pierce Brown is my go-to for sci-fi.
Okay.
I'm addicted to Pierce Brown. And then if I'm going to go for military drama, that is James Rollins. And
you, in your writing and your reading, you are very diverse.
Well, I feel like you have to be in order to, like, so in Afterworld, I mix all those things.
Yeah.
There's fantasy, there's the military dog, because Hank's like a police dog, and Kate's a police officer, and then you got the fantasy, the romance, the paranormal. So I like to mix all those elements in there. Yeah. So yeah, very eclectic, I guess, with my reading.
I love that. Okay. And I love that because then obviously you put it to use in your work.
Yes. I like to study because if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. And so I study people that are great writers. And I say to myself,
do you know what your Enneagram number is?
Say that again?
Do you know what your Enneagram number is?
My what number? I'm
so interested. The Enneagram is like a personality type. And as you're explaining yourself, I'm just like, I wonder.
How do you find out what that number? Like, how do you find that out?
I will email you the test. It's free. So after this, I will email it to you because you're not supposed to type people, so I won't. But I'm like,
Well, type me. I want to be typed.
I think you sound very Enneagram 3 because of all of your, research-oriented kind of thing. Maybe a 5. It's so interesting. I love the Enneagram. We can totally derail this with me going off on the Enneagram. So let's get back to you. Are you reading anything right now?
So So I was reading the Throne of Glass, Heir of Fire that's number 3. Because I read all the Court of Roses. Oh my God! Wait,
yeah.
And then I started with the Crescent City, and somebody told me I can't read the second book unless I read Throne of Glass. And I wasn't a fan of Throne of Glass. I kind of DNF'd that a long time ago, but then I picked it up and now I'm enjoying it. But I just got Kingdom of the Fear by Carrie in the mail today, so that trumps Sarah for a little while.
I have not read Throne of Glass yet, but I have read A Court of Thorns and Roses and Crescent City. I didn't know I should have read Throne of Glass before the second Crescent City book, though.
Yeah, somebody said to me there are, apparently she meshes the universes.
Okay. So I wouldn't even know because
So
I
no,
haven't.
but because of who I am, I was like, okay, I have to now read 7 other books. So I'm on that journey. So it's gonna be a while by the time I get to the second Crescent City book, because I do not knowing. But yeah, and actually, I just also read The Never King the other day.
Ooh, I love that.
So I not the book talk made me do it, but that was book talk made me do it. I was like, okay, I'm done.
How did you feel about it?
So I thought it was gonna be darker. Everybody talked about how dark it was. I'm like, oh my god. And I'm reading, I'm like, where's the dark part? There was all this darkness. You talk about like these are monsters. Like, what did they do? Where is this? These bad boys are not so bad. You know? And then when it came to the kink or the or you know, the spicy, I was like, I thought there'd be more. I'm like, the spice is good, but I wanted more.
That is the one thing with being on the online book community, is they can have you so amped up, and you just have expectations that are out of nowhere because of context from Book Talk.
Yes.
Or the total opposite. Like, I've read books that Book Talk has hated and I liked, but they get like a bad rep. So yeah.
I mean, in terms of liking or hating it, I don't go in thinking that I'm gonna love it like everybody else or hate it like everybody else. I just go in there because I'm curious why everybody is so interested in this book. And as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, I get the appeal. I see it. It's well written, and I'm like, but I really expected more darkness.
Yeah.
For it. And it wasn't as dark as I thought it was gonna be, but I enjoyed it. I'm ready for number 2, the dark one, right? So it's the second book.
Yes, that's a good one. I have read all 3 of the books so far.
I wasn't a huge fan of Vane though, and I hear, is in book 2 like about him?
He's my favorite. Talk to me after you read book 2 and see if you still aren't a fan of him. Okay.
I mean, go ahead.
No, finish that. I want to hear it.
No, I was gonna say maybe it's the fact that he was the one that was kind of like, I'm not really interested. That's kind of like, well, now I want you more. Yeah. type of thing. Yeah. And then you always fall for the bad guy with the heart of gold, right? And he swoops in at the end to do his gallant thing. But okay, I mean, like I said, I'm very open-minded, and I definitely have the book 2 queued up in my I do Audible. I did the audiobooks.
So I got my 10-minute warning. Actually, now we're down to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's just wrap it up with a couple questions. Like, how can readers connect with you? So you're on the online book community. I have dogs.
So I'm all over social media. So you can find me on Facebook at author Olivia Boothe, Instagram at author Olivia Boothe, Twitter. I barely go on Twitter, but I'm on there. That's the Olivia Boothe on Twitter. Obviously I'm on TikTok. I use my new account is Olivia Boothe Books, and that's really the only account that I use on TikTok. My other one is kind of dead. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. That's what people.
And you mentioned a website. You have a website.
I do. OliviaBoothe.com. Okay.
And your books are on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited.
So my Wicked Dance duet, Wicked Dance and Wicked Embrace, that's available wide, so you can get that on any retailer. And Eternally Yours and Afterworld are on KU. So
Okay.
Kindle Unlimited.
All right. And wrapping it up, is there
and
anything?
I'm going to be at Shameless in November. So would love to meet anybody that's going to Shameless.
Where's that at?
That's going to be out of Orlando, right? At Disney.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So readers can find you there. Is there anything else you would like the readers to know about your works before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I mean, I guess just give me a try. I love spicy romance with deep layered plots. I'm your girl.
I love that. Well, Olivia, thank you so much for doing this with me. This was a blast talking with you.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. Yes.
This was so much fun.
And email me that thing about the personality.
I will.
I'm really curious about that now.
It is one of my favorite things ever. I will definitely email you that as soon as we're done here.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.